Yes.
Mhm.
Woo! And welcome. It's my absolute honor and greatest pleasure to welcome Gerry. Woo!
I
Hi. Okay, so thank you so much for spending your time with us here today. And first question is, what does self-care mean to you?
um, well, if I was going to be flippant, I'd say washing on a daily basis. But self-care in reality is making sure that you are fit to carry out what you need to carry out on a daily basis, and that includes physically and mentally.
And do you kind of check in with yourself physically and mentally every day, or does it vary?
It it varies to a degree. It depends on what I find sitting waiting on my laptop when I log in. That will have a bearing. But no, I try to get my days planned out so that I do have time to actually come alive first. Because to me, self-care is about getting yourself into a position where you start the day in confident mood. You start the day in a position of strength rather than, oh my God, I'm in a panic.
Yeah. And so, how do you do that? What steps do you take to get yourself in that mood?
Well, it starts with a cup of tea. It used to start with about 3 cups of coffee. I've got away from that. And it's really it's about taking stock of where I feel I am at that point in time. So first thing in the morning, and then dealing with whatever I find. Sometimes I've slept poorly and I wake up tired, um, because at the moment I seem to have an internal clock that's kicked in at 7:03 every morning, regardless of what day it is.
Mm.
And regardless of what time the alarm has been set for, 7:03, this internal clock kicks off. And I'll have to deal with that at some point. But realistically, it's about checking yourself physically and mentally, making sure that everything that you need to have functioning for the day is functioning, and it's functioning the way you want it to.
And how did you first begin to do that check-in with yourself?
It took me a long time to work it out. It took me a very, very long time to come to appreciate that what goes on internally manifests externally. And it was a long, long process for me, because my background is pretty checkered. So I spent an awfully long time drinking to excess, and that didn't do me any favors at all. And it took me what, 25 years to realize that it wasn't doing me any favors. So I didn't learn terribly quickly either. But I honestly believe that we're here for a reason, and my reason was obviously to find myself that way, through that path, and be able to help others now who are on that path, or on any kind of self-negating path. So it was there was a reason behind it, and it's put me in good stead now. And then when I finally did find myself, I got to a point where I started to understand the things I'd done. And isn't that part of life? Understanding why you've done things. Well, I've made a lot more mistakes than most people I know. So I understand a bit more than a lot of people. And it means I can help others more effectively.
Yeah, that's amazing. And thank you for sharing so openly with us. I really appreciate that.
I don't see any point in having life experiences that you keep hidden. If you're having life experiences that you don't want others to know about, then don't have those experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good top tip. So before you're doing anything or going into anything, just think, would you want other people to be aware? And
Yeah,
if not, why not? Should you really be doing it? Do you really want to be doing it?
yeah. There's a saying that I've known for years, which is, "What would your grandmother say?" Um, and you think of it in those terms, and you suddenly think she probably wouldn't be too impressed. Okay, well, in that case, I probably shouldn't be doing it. Um, you know, and isn't it strange that that's quite an old-fashioned attitude,
Mm.
worrying about what others might think. But the reality is, if you're doing things that others think are unhealthy or unhelpful or antisocial or that get others wound up, aren't you just cutting down your chances of meeting people who get to know you and like you and therefore become friends and everything else? Become uh, decent work colleagues. It just impacts in all areas of your life. So, anything that you can do that actually lessens the impact is beneficial to you and to them.
Yeah, lessening the negative impact. I like that. And so
Mm,
you could flip it, and rather than lessening the negative, it could be, what can you do to build the positive? How do you
yeah,
increase the connection in like the good ways?
yeah. But you can't start that before and until you've lessened any negative,
Mm.
because it's very difficult to build positive if there's negative there to start with. So first action is to have a look at it. Does this have a negative impact? If it does, don't do it, because it's going to make your job harder if you do. And I'm all for for keeping things I've always been one for keeping things simple. Keep it easy.
Yeah.
I've had my time of doing it all the hard way.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess the other way is like by reducing the negative, you're kind of neutralizing. So rather than there being
Yeah,
like an issue and you're making the issue worse, you're just kind of not doing that action, and then it neutralizes it. And then you've got your foundation to build on.
yeah. You've got a solid foundation to start with. Think of how would you build a house? You put down the foundations first, because you don't want it wobbling around so the big bad wolf can come and blow it down. So start from a base of tranquility. Yeah, so that you're not causing unnecessary waves, and that makes fostering relationships so much easier. And life is about relationships.
Yeah.
If you're building relationships that turn into friendships, they sustain you during the low periods, because we all have them. Doesn't matter how good you are going to have periods where things aren't going the way you want them to, and that's where friends come in.
Yeah.
And if you haven't built any up, then you've got a problem.
Well, and get started, because I completely agree. It's having that kind of support network around you. So, like you said, when things come up, when you're like checking in with yourself, do you have that support network around of people you can reach out to for that bit of help?
Yeah, yeah. And if the answer is no, then go and bloody build one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, going back to what we started with about that checking in process. If you're not checking in, you won't be aware of this. You won't really be aware that you don't have any sustainable friendships, because you've still got people milling around you, and it's very easy to lull yourself into this sort of false sense of security by thinking, yeah, look at all these people I know. but how many of them would actually turn around and help you if you needed it? And that, to me, is the essence of friendship. It's someone you can turn to. I'm very lucky. I've got some very long-standing friends. I mean, people I've known for 50 plus years now. One of the benefits of being an old fart, as my daughter calls me, is that you've had time to establish relationships, long-standing ones. And they're the kind of friends who you don't have to see for a year or more. But as soon as you do, you're straight back in. And the door's always open. And it's a two-way thing, isn't it? And having that kind of support network around you is massive. Not these fly-by-night acquaintances.
Yeah.
So, the check-in process, first thing you check, do I still have friends? When you get to my age, you start checking the obituaries. Just to make sure they're still there.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, and I guess if you find no, perhaps you don't, then it's time to start looking for the people that align with how you want to be and how you want to show up, and find other people that are in that same kind of area.
To a degree, but the first thing you should be doing at that point is working out why that's a no. Because again, try not to put the cart before the horse. You actually need to sort out whatever it is that's preventing you from achieving those relationships before you try and achieve relationships. And the problem with this is this is life, isn't it? You learn by living. And if you're not learning the lessons that life is giving you, and I can attest to this, if you're not learning those lessons, then you're making life very difficult. But the nice bit about life is that as soon as you do start to learn the lessons, everything turns around. And that's why I get clients coming in who I've got people who've been drug users, habitual drug users and stuff like that, and they come in because they've finally learned a bit of a lesson. They've come to an understanding that what they're doing is not getting them what they want. They don't understand why, but they come in because they want to find out. And isn't that the first step? You want to find out. And everybody gets to that point at some point in their lives. It doesn't matter. What's the guy, Bronson, the hardest man in jail, who was locked away for 40 years or whatever it was. Everybody avoided him, but he eventually started spending his time in jail educating himself and learning. That doesn't mean he changed, but he started to understand. And I'm sure if I ever met Mr. Hitler, I'm sure that deep in the recesses of his mind, what he was doing was, to his version of reality, the best he could do, and with a positive higher purpose. It doesn't say he was right, but his positive higher purpose would have been something. There would have been one there. And at least you could have a discussion on that basis. And that's what I love about what I do. Getting to discuss with people what their higher purpose is. And then engage in a bit of a debate about it. Because it gives you that option, doesn't it? That opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I think it's opening up like their perspective. Like you said, by getting into the debate, you can start to open up their vision of the world a little.
Yeah. Yeah,
and then obviously that's where we learn about ourselves and what our real beliefs and values are. And actually standing at that, could I do things differently, to achieve the outcome that I'm actually looking for?
yeah. And life's about alternatives. You can take option A or you can take option B. Well, it's never really that black and white, though.
Yeah.
You can take option A or A1 or A2 or A3, and you can take options B 1 to 9, or you can go all the way down to Z, because there are so many possibilities out there for us. But the trick is to identify those that have a positive outcome for you and for the people around you. Because don't forget, if the positive outcome for you is alienating others, going back to Mr. Hitler,
Yeah.
if it's alienating others, it's going to give you a life full of strife.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes people just need that little bit of outside input that says, "Are you sure?
Yeah.
Have you evaluated that fully?"
No, probably not.
And it's lovely to be able to work like that.
Yeah. It's really empowering, because then you realize that it is actually your choice.
Yeah,
you know
and it's empowering on two levels. It's empowering on the level of you as an individual, but it's also, don't forget, it's also empowering on the level of your acquaintances as individuals as well,
yeah.
because they suddenly see someone who they've got pigeonholed in one group change, and that gives them options.
Yeah.
And you could go from, "God, I can't stand that person," to, "Oh, they're not that bad, really. Maybe I misjudge them." And just by you making the change, what you project is what's inside you.
Yeah.
So what you project is also what you get back. So if you're a sourpuss, guess what you're gonna surround yourself with? More sourpusses. And if you suddenly find yourself thinking, "Why am I surrounded by all these miserable bits?" Possibly because you're one yourself.
Yeah, you got to look at the mirror then, haven't
Have
you?
a look in the mirror. Yeah. But it's got to be a true mirror. It's not one that you've created.
Yeah.
Because if you create a mirror as a sour git, you're going to create a mirror that reflects sour as being good.
Oh, yeah, I like that. A mirror that shows you how you want it to be.
Yeah.
Mm.
And don't we all do that?
I think, yeah, and I think it's at the point where you realize that that's what you're doing. That's kind of your baseline. You're then like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, no, I don't want that. And that's where you start to go into that transformation.
And that's also what gives you choices. I'm still a long-haired git. I have been since I was 17. And I have this steadfast refusal to have short hair. And yes, it's something I could change, but it's not a value I actually want to change. So I'm aware of the downsides of it. It means that I have to explain things to people on occasion, but it's just something that I've never wanted to change, and I suspect I never will. And there are choices. That's the point. You have choices. You can choose to have a particular foible of your own, and you carry it with you. And if it causes you to have to do certain things to get what you want, then you're prepared to do that. So I'm not saying that everybody should be a clone of everybody else. Far from it. You have to be an individual. And in my case, the individualism is I still have long hair. Okay, it's not a problem. It's not a problem to me, and it's not a problem to people who resonate with me as a person.
Yeah.
It's the same as if you want to wear a suit to work every day, then you wear a suit to work every day. There's no difference there.
No. And I like that because, again, that's like the empowerment. It's your choice. You get to pick in every moment exactly what you're doing. Now, obviously, there's certain sort of legal restrictions that we have to live with because we're in society. But, even then, you can choose to abide by it or not. We have those constant choices. And it's just remembering that you can choose.
And every choice has a consequence.
Yeah.
Absolutely every choice has a consequence. Be it positive or negative, there is a consequence. And it's up to you to decide whether that consequence is one that you're willing to live with.
Yeah.
For me, I wouldn't do anything that, should we say, harms an individual. I'm not worried about upsetting people on occasion, because you find yourself in positions where you've got to be honest. And I couldn't operate as a coach if I wasn't honest.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you find the same, Liz. You have to. Sometimes some of the truths are unpalatable, but if you wrap them up in cotton wool, then that client is going to go away with that truth unresolved, and they're going to continue the behaviors that they came to you with. But there's always a way of putting it gently, and getting them to consider the outcome of their actions.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't ever impose a solution on anyone. You can't. I've climbed too many ladders in my time, and climbed over too many people to get to the top of that ladder, and then sort of think, why did I want to come up here? And oh, look, they're all waiting for me now. You do learn with experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, again, that kind of comes back to that checking in with yourself. It's just making sure that the decisions you're taking, the consequences that may occur, you're willing to pay those prices. And does that really align with your values? And it all begins with working out, what are your values?
Yeah.
And are you aligned at the minute? And what bits do you want to change so that you get, into that kind of self-alignment?
Once you understand your values, you understand what you have to offer, you understand what you have to work with, and therefore you can work out, and this is my project management head coming on, because let's face it, life is a project. And it's one of the things I tell clients now, your life's a project. I'm not only an NLP master coach, I'm also probably one of the best project management trainers in the UK, because there aren't any that have been doing it as long as I have. And I know that life is a project, so therefore I can help you to realign that project for a better purpose, or whatever it is you want as an outcome. But treat your life as a project. Exactly the same as booking a holiday is a project, and getting there. So it's all projects. You just have to get things lined up. Identify what needs to be done, and then line it up in the right sequence so you get it done. And if there are things that you can't do, learn them, or get someone else to do them.
Yeah. And that's going back to that support network again, isn't it? Is making sure you've got the people that are going to be there to help you build your life project how you want it to be.
The people that surround you are part of your life project team.
Yeah.
And you'll have people who will keep you on the straight and narrow, who will organize you. You'll have others who will do the spade work, the heavy lifting, or will assist you with the heavy lifting. They're all there. So make sure that your life project is one that you're proud of at the end.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be awful to get to the end and be told you screwed that up?
Ah, I guess so long as you know within yourself that you've done the best you wanted to do, you've taken those opportunities you wanted to, you've made the
Yeah,
decisions you want. Actually, what someone else's judgment at the end is doesn't really matter, because I think it's you. You have to be happy with you.
it depends on where you think you're going afterwards.
That's true.
Yeah. If you think that there's going to be a judgment day at the end,
Mm,
um, and you're coming towards it and you're thinking, oh my God, I really shouldn't have done all of those things that I've done. It's not a nice way to approach whatever the end is.
yeah. So I guess it
I'd
goes
rather
back.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd rather be approaching it on the basis that, yeah, I've screwed up, but I've I've got positives in the ledger as well,
Yeah.
and there's more positive than there are negatives.
Yeah.
I've done my best. I've done the best I can with the resources I had available to me at that point in time. And your resources grow as you get older. Your understanding grows. And I must admit, I find I get far less annoyed at stupid things these days than I ever did before.
Woo. That's a celebration.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I yeah, I know I've done an awful lot of internal work with my own inner demons and my own inner values and beliefs and everything. So I know what's changed, but I look back at what has been changed, and I think I would have been able to change that eventually,
Yeah.
but eventually it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
You know, let's get to the point of being the true me as quickly as possible, and that applies to everyone.
Yeah. I followed a similar path myself. And it's very timely. And I know that keeping you on time, you get to go now. So I would like to say a huge thank you for sharing everything so openly and, going into real detail with us there. It was amazing. Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure, Liz. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Woo! Amazing.